We've all heard of fight, flight, or freeze response to danger. But did you know that your brain has a fourth response that you might not be aware of? And this is something that you need to know because it could save your life one day. So let's talk about the fourth dangerous response to danger that you must know. So we're going to break down how your brain handles fear so you can understand why you freeze up when you're afraid. And for those of you that are brave enough to stick around to the end, I will share with you a simple tool that you can use to stop the fear response in its tracks and move into action even if you feel completely stuck right now. First off, let's take a look at the amygdala. It's an almond-shaped structure deep within our brain, and it's responsible for processing emotions, particularly fear. This little guy acts like a radar for danger, constantly scanning our environment for potential threats. When it detects something that might be harmful, it springs into action by sending out distress signals to other parts of the brain. Next, let's talk about hormones. They're chemical messengers that travel through our bloodstream, and they play a crucial role in our body's response to fear. When the amygdala sounds the alarm, our body jumps into action by releasing a surge of hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline gets our heart racing and our muscles tense, preparing us to fight or flight. Meanwhile, cortisol helps to focus our attention on the perceived threat, and then we have instinct. Our instincts are hardwired patterns of behavior that have evolved over millions of years of natural selection. They're basically survival mechanisms that kick in when we're in danger. When it comes to fear, our instincts tell us to run away from danger or freeze and hope for the best. Now here's where things get interesting. The amygdala, hormones, and instincts work together to create our fight, flight, or freeze response. Let's say you're hiking in the woods and you hear a twig snap. Your amygdala, which is always on the lookout for danger, quickly processes the sound and determines that it could be a potential threat, like maybe a hungry bear. It sends a distress signal to the rest of the brain, triggering the release of hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart starts racing and your muscles tense. Your instincts tell you to either fight the bear or flight or freeze and hope that you haven't been noticed. These instincts are so powerful that they can override our rational thoughts. Even if you know that there's no bear in sight, your body still responds as if there was one. That's because our instincts are hardwired and they're designed to keep us alive. They don't care about whether or not we actually believe that there's a threat. But did you know that your brain has a fourth response to danger that you probably are unaware of? And this is something that you need to know because it could save your life one day. It's called fawn, and it's a response that involves appeasing the perceived threat. So let's explore this fascinating response and understand how it works. The fawn response is a survival mechanism that has been observed in many animals, including dogs and primates. When an animal feels trapped with no way out of a dangerous situation, they may submit and hope that the predator will be satisfied and not kill them. This is often accompanied by a release of oxytocin, a hormone that promotes bonding and reduces stress. By appeasing the threat, the animal is essentially saying, "I am harmless, please don't hurt me," which can sometimes work and convince the predator to back off. This response is more likely to occur when the animal has a close relative of a species that is prey for the predator. For example, a squirrel that witnesses a bird eating a chipmunk may be more likely to fawn in the presence of that bird than a squirrel that has never seen a bird eat a chipmunk before. Similarly, humans can exhibit fawn response when they witness other humans being harmed or threatened. For example, if someone sees another person being attacked, they may freeze and hope that the attacker will be satisfied and not harm them as well. Now let's take a closer look at the freeze response itself. It's a survival mechanism that has been observed in many animals, including reptiles and mammals. When an animal is faced with a threat that it perceives as too dangerous to fight or flight, it may freeze and hope that the threat will pass without noticing it. This is often accompanied by a release of the hormone oxytocin, which can help to reduce stress and promote bonding. By freezing, the animal is essentially trying to become invisible and hope that the predator will move on to easier prey. For example, a rabbit that is being stalked by a fox may freeze and hope that the fox will become bored and lose interest. This can be an effective strategy as predators generally prefer to hunt live prey, and a dead animal is not very nutritious. Additionally, some predators may be more likely to attack an animal that is moving rather than one that is frozen, as movement can be perceived as a challenge or an invitation to play. However, the freeze response is not always successful, and some animals such as hedgehogs and turtles can fall victim to predators, despite using this strategy. Furthermore, not all predators rely solely on their sense of sight. and some, such as snakes, can detect movement through vibrations in the ground. This means that freezing may not always be an effective strategy for avoiding predators, especially for animals that produce vibrations while freezing, such as mammals that are breathing heavily. But let's come back to humans. When we are frozen in fear, our bodies go into a state of physical immobility. Similar to what we see in other animals who are trying to avoid detection. Our heart rates slow down and our muscles become stiff, making it difficult to move or speak. In extreme cases, we may even experience a temporary loss of consciousness, known as a tonic immobility state. This state can last for a few seconds or even minutes, and is often accompanied by a feeling of helplessness and dissociation from reality. Now let's explore why this freeze response can be just as natural as running away. When we are in a life-threatening situation, our brains activate the fight, flight, or freeze response in order to increase our chances of survival. Running away is a great option if we are able to assess the situation and determine that escape is possible. However, if we are unable to escape, then freezing can be a natural response to protect ourselves from harm. When we freeze, our bodies enter a state of physical immobility, which can make it difficult for an attacker to detect us. This can be an effective strategy for avoiding detection, especially if we are in a group or in a place where there are other people around. Freezing can also be a way for us to protect ourselves from physical harm. When we are frozen, our muscles become stiff, which can make it difficult for an attacker to grab or hold us. This can give us a chance to protect ourselves or call for help. It's important to note that the freeze response is not a conscious decision that we can control. It is an automatic response that occurs when our brains perceive a threat to our safety. However, we can learn to recognize the signs of freezing and take steps to prevent it from happening to us. Now let's get into the practical application. Let's talk about a simple tool that you can use to stop the fear response in its tracks and move into action even if you feel completely stuck. One way to overcome the freeze response is through breath work. When we are frozen in fear, our breathing becomes shallow and restricted. By focusing on our breathing and taking deep breaths, we can help to calm our nervous system and move out of the freeze response. Another approach is to engage in physical activities such as running or jumping jacks. When we are frozen, our muscles become stiff, and it can be difficult to move. By engaging in physical activity, we can help to loosen our muscles and increase our mobility. This can help us to break the cycle of freezing and allow us to move more freely. It's also important to seek support from others when we are frozen in fear. Reaching out to friends, family, or mental health professionals can help us to process our emotions and develop coping mechanisms for managing fear and anxiety. By understanding the amygdala, hormones and instincts, and the role they play in our fight, flight, or freeze response, we can start to recognize the signs of fear and take steps to manage it effectively. While freezing may be an instinctive reaction to danger, it is not always the best strategy for ensuring our safety. By learning to recognize the signs of freezing and taking steps to prevent it from happening to us, we can better protect ourselves and improve our overall quality of life. If you liked this video, check out this video on how to stay calm when you're overwhelmed.